For most people, going on a low-carb diet really means going on a low-carb, high-fat diet. But just like there are good and bad carbohydrates, there are good and bad fats. Our ideas on which fats are healthy and which are not has changed quite a bit over the years. In this video, I'll go over the difference so you know which ones to choose. In past decades, we simply drew a line when it came down to deciding if a dietary fat was good for you or bad for you. On one side of the line, we had saturated fats, which were deemed to be unhealthy. On the other side, we had unsaturated fats that were widely regarded as healthy choices. And we went along with this belief for many years, but then some problems started to arise that blurred the line between what we had thought to be good and bad fats. For instance, coconut oil is mainly composed of saturated fatty acids. However, it is particularly high in a specific type of fatty acid known as lauric acid. Lauric acid has been shown to significantly increase high-density lipoproteins, or HDLs, which we think of as good cholesterol. So despite the fact that we've been trained to think that eating saturated fats increases your risk of cardiovascular disease, here we have a saturated fat that has a protective effect. And there is also a growing body of research that is furthering this idea that saturated fats are not the direct path to heart disease that they were once thought to be. So with the health of saturated fats coming into question, the finger then got pointed at cholesterol in our diets. And this is when the egg became enemy number one, because the yolk of an egg contains quite a bit of cholesterol. In fact, there is about 186 milligrams of cholesterol in a large egg, making it one of the highest cholesterol foods. However, the cholesterol that we eat does not significantly affect the level of cholesterol in the blood. In fact, if you are running low on cholesterol, your liver will make it because you need cholesterol to build things like cell membranes, bile acids for digestion, hormones, and vitamin D. Now, if we shift gears and look at the other side of the line, we have unsaturated fats that have been enjoying the label of being healthy for many years. However, some problems have started to show up that brings that label into question. For instance, polyunsaturated vegetable oils were once heralded as being heart healthy. However, many of these refined oils are high in inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids and extracted using harmful chemicals or heat that causes them to degrade. And when we consume those things, we create inflammation in the body, which degrades cholesterol, making heart disease actually more likely. So we can't just flip-flop the recommendation entirely and now say that a diet high in saturated fat and low in unsaturated fat is the way to go. But these facts show us that the dividing line between good and bad fats is more complex than we had originally thought. So let's dig a little deeper and go into the pros and cons of saturated and unsaturated fats and give some examples of each so you have a good roadmap. One of the pros or best features of saturated fats is that they are very stable molecules. Being saturated means that the bonds of the molecules are all taken up, so there's no available bonds in which a spare oxygen or hydrogen atom could come in and invade the molecule and change it. And that stability makes saturated fats great for cooking. Examples of good cooking fats include butter, coconut oil, and what you might think of as old-fashioned fats like lard and tallow. Another pro of saturated fats is that they tend to be in whole foods that are unprocessed foods. And this has two distinct benefits. First of all, we get a full range of vitamins and minerals as well as protein from these types of foods. And second, consuming these foods takes away hunger. So even though gram for gram fat is calorie dense, we tend to eat less when we eat a low carb, high fat, moderate protein diet. Examples of whole unprocessed foods that have health benefits despite also containing significant amounts of saturated fatty acids are eggs, high quality meats, and full-fat dairy products like yogurt and heavy cream and varieties of cheese. Now, I will add that saturated fats are also found in processed meats like hot dogs and lunch meats and bacon and low-quality meats that you might get from a fast food restaurant, as well as dairy treats like ice cream. And while a small amount of these foods will not derail your health, they are not healthy to rely on as a staple of your diet. A diet high in processed foods can increase your risk of chronic disease like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. So the adage holds true that you cannot outrun the effects of a poor diet. Now, despite the pros I mentioned, saturated fats have not enjoyed a fully clean bill of health. For one thing, the health value of a diet high in saturated fats is still hotly debated in the scientific world, with sources showing that a diet high in saturated fat raises LDL cholesterol. However, it's not clear how much this will impact a person's risk of developing cardiovascular disease. And how much eating saturated fat affects your health may come down to your genes. So for some, a diet high in saturated fat has health consequences, and this vulnerability can be predicted thanks to something called SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are variations on your genes that are unique to you. SNPs are useful because certain ones are associated with certain health conditions, and many of them can be turned on or off based on environmental factors like the foods you eat. For instance, the FTO gene is nicknamed the obesity gene. If this gene variation is present in you, you have a higher risk of obesity, especially if your diet is high in saturated fats. There are also other SNPs as well that, if present inside of you, can increase your risk of diabetes or heart disease on a high saturated fat diet. And as a side note, you can find out which SNPs you have by getting a DNA test from a place like 23andMe, and then use a service like the one provided by Dr. Rhonda Patrick that takes your raw data and provides complete analysis. And I'll leave instructions in the description area below if you are interested in that. Okay, now when we look at an unsaturated fat, we see that it can be either monounsaturated or polyunsaturated. The difference has to do with chemistry. As we learned in a saturated fatty acid, all of the bonds between carbons are single bonds. Unsaturated fats have one or more double bond. Mono means one, so in a monounsaturated fat, we have one double bond between carbon atoms. Poly means many, so we have two or more double bonds in those molecules. And let's look at these fats separately. Like many saturated fats, monounsaturated fats can be obtained from eating whole unprocessed foods like avocados, nuts and seeds, and fatty fish. So we are getting the hunger satisfaction and health benefits from the fats, as well as a host of micronutrients. Monounsaturated fats are also obtained from some healthy oils like olive oil and avocado oil, but regardless of the source, there is a good body of research to support the fact that monounsaturated fats are heart healthy. So monounsaturated fats are the ones that we tend to celebrate when it comes to health. However, that double bond in their structure reveals a vulnerability. Having a double bond in its chemical structure is kind of like having the two carbons shaking both hands with each other, which is kind of awkward. So these molecules are less stable, and they're always looking for a free atom to grab onto, like an oxygen atom. If this oxidation happens, it changes the oil in ways that we don't want. For instance, oxidation can cause the oil to lose antioxidants and release oxidation products like free radicals that can damage your cells of your body. This breakdown of oil is accelerated by the exposure of elements like light and heat. So if you've ever noticed getting a good quality oil, it will always come in a dark bottle, and that is to lessen the impact of light. Cooking introduces heat, which can break down monounsaturated oils, and the heat tolerance of an oil may have to do with its level of quality. Extra virgin means that an oil has been extracted first, which means that it contains more antioxidants and helpful components than regular olive oil. The oil is also squeezed out of the plant, and the way that is done affects the quality. You will be best off if you find oils that say cold pressed or expeller pressed, because they are extracted without high heat or chemicals. As for specific monounsaturated oils, avocado oil has a higher smoke point than olive oil, so I use it for cooking along with the saturated cooking fats that I mentioned earlier. I also use olive oil, but for non-cooking purposes. This is due to its potential to break down with heat. Also, there's a controversy that surrounds some brands of olive oil that are suspected of being mixed with lesser vegetable oils. So it doesn't always pay to go with the cheapest choice for olive oils. Now, vegetable oils, they are not healthy oils, partly due to the fact that they are polyunsaturated, which means that they have multiple double bonds in their structure that can react with oxygen. Vegetable oils are things like soybean, corn, sunflower, and safflower oil. They are not easy oils to extract and often require a lot of heat or chemical solvents to pull the oil out. And this will break down the oil and introduce harmful byproducts that you don't want to ingest. As a side note, canola oil is an oil extracted from the rapeseed. It contains a good amount of monounsaturated fat, but it is not an oil that I use due to how it is often extracted. If you do choose to use it, go for a cold-pressed or expeller-pressed variety. Another problem with vegetable oil is that their available bonds allow them to bind to hydrogen through a process called hydrogenation. Food manufacturers like to hydrogenate vegetable oils because it turns the liquid oil into a solid fat, which greatly increases the shelf life of a food. However, your body does not like that because this is where trans fats come from, which are well known for their health risk. These hydrogenated oils are found in things like Crisco and margarine or butter spreads, and they solidly belong in the bad column. Of course, the news is not all bad when it comes to polyunsaturated fats, and that is because they have a superstar among them, namely omega-3 fish oils. Now, we don't cook with this type of oil, but most of us are familiar with the little capsules that it comes in. Getting these fatty acids into your diet on a regular basis provides you with a baseline protection against disease by reducing inflammation in your body. You can take in omega-3s in a capsule form or get them from things like fatty fish or nuts and seeds. So the bottom line is this: when you include healthy fats in your diet, they will satisfy your hunger, which will naturally prevent overeating. While genetics may play a role in which fats you can choose, most people can enjoy a mix of saturated and unsaturated fats from both plant and animal sources, including meat and fatty fish, eggs, avocados, nuts and seeds, and full-fat dairy products. As for cooking, butter and coconut oil or avocado oil work great. For low heat purposes, olive oil is also a great choice. What you want to avoid are the vegetable oils and the fake fats like Crisco and margarine or spreads. And I know there's a lot to learn. If you are looking for a good place to get your diet started, I encourage you to download my 0123 strategy. It has served as a launching pad for more than 60,000 people, and you can download it for free through the links here on the video and down below in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and until the next video, have a great week.